Cheers and welcome to the 25th episode of Coffee and UFOs. Thank you, everyone who has continued to support this program. For this special milestone episode, I had to bring on a special guest, and that guest is UFO Jane, also known by her real name as Jane Kyle, the host of the Weird UFO Show. We had a really good conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I know that you will as well. It went a little longer for Coffee and UFO episode than normal, but you know what? I'm not going to edit it down because it was really good, and it's a special episode, so why not? We also went on a little sidetrack into sci-fi and Star Wars, which I think you'll appreciate because it all ties in together and makes sense. So thank you. If you're listening to the podcast, please share. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment down below, hit the notification bell, and follow me on Twitter as well for future updates at @powernormal_now. All right. Enjoy this episode of Coffee and UFOs. Do you have your coffee or a drink? Oh my God, I love it. That's awesome.
That works?
Totally. Yeah. Well, cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, this is my little mini coffee cup, but
I love it.
if you make it strong enough, this is a lot of power right here.
Yeah, it's all about the proportion.
It is. Welcome, Jane Kyle, to Coffee and UFOs.
Thank you.
And you are okay. So we were having a conversation during a live show recently, and your name came up, but it was the person from Texas. Oh, what's her name? Jane. Oh yeah, who? UFO Jane. But what's her real name? UFO Jane. And I felt so bad because I knew your name, but on the live stream, I was like, oh my God, I can't. Is it Kent? Is it? But so you're.
No, my name is awesome. You don't ever have to apologize.
Well, no, thank you. I feel better now. but it's kind of cool though that people just know you as UFO Jane.
Yeah, and that's my fault because I've gone. Jane Kyle is the real name, and then UFO Jane is in the spirit of coffee and UFOs, and some of the shows you do, like the more fun name. And it's really funny because on Instagram, my handle is UFO Jane TX for Texas. But a lot of people just know me from Instagram, and they see that name, and to them, I'm UFO Janet X.
Oh.
As long as
okay.
we're chatting online and looking at UFOs together, whatever. So it's funny.
Yeah. Not UFO Janet. Can you pull the microphone closer to yourself?
I can also, if needed, I can try to reconfigure the mic I had before. That any better?
Hallelujah. So I'll ask you the first question that we ask everybody on Coffee and UFOs, and that is, have you, Jane, seen a UFO?
Maybe one time, and I think I tell myself it was probably a drone. So this was well into being a ufologist or UFO researcher, whatever term you prefer. This was well into that. I was just looking at some fireworks and honestly anticipating reports to my site because it was, I think, 4th of July or some New Year's Eve, something like that. So anticipating that people would be looking at fireworks just like me and mistake things. And so there I see this triangle UFO, which I've documented on my site on many occasions. Many people in Texas see these. That's where I am in Texas. So red lights, clear triangle, dark covering there, very odd. And there was no part of me that told me to get, there's no instinct in me to get my phone to film it. I never wrote an article about it. So you'd think I would have done a whole video about it and investigated it just like I do any report that comes my way. But my natural reaction was just, wonder what that was.
Do you like keeping it mysterious for yourself, maybe?
Maybe. I think you're onto something. Yeah, I think you're onto something. I'm sure I would see more if I really wanted to see more. And if I had wanted to learn more, I would have learned more, just like I do with other cases.
Yeah. So, but technically it was a UFO then.
Oh, it definitely was. It was, I never debunked it, identified it. It will remain a mystery. My theory is, of course, okay, it could have been a drone. Drones are even at that time were pretty advanced. Drones an easy one. I mean, back in the day it was weather balloons. Today it's drones.
So I think that the living in the mystery, it's kind of my tagline at the end of the show, is what I love about all of this anyway. So, you know, do you feel like there's an enchantment for you in the mystery, or do you have to get the answers?
I think there's definitely an enchantment. I mean, I would say it's half and half. I have to get the answers. I have a journalism degree from UT Austin. I was considering that path for a little bit and ended up pursuing other types of content, and then really found that the journalist in me was ignited by the UFO phenomenon. And really my immediate instinct if my sixth sense goes off, like, oh, that there's something to that, I can't ignore that. And so my immediate instinct is actually to debunk it. So that's really what you do, is you try, wow, that sounds too good to be true. Let's find out if it is too good to be true. And then you're left with these, handful of cases that you couldn't get the answer for, despite all your best efforts. And that definitely keeps me going. At the same time, the more I learn and uncover, the more this phenomenon, it gets increasingly complicated and confusing. So the mystery just gets deeper.
Right. And when you say a handful of cases, I would say like a pile full of cases.
Like, that's fair.
Like there's so many that are intriguing, but you just can't get a definitive answer on it. I feel like the ones that are most interesting really are eyewitness accounts where there's more than one witness, because at that point it's really undeniable whether someone was imagining something or they misidentified something.
Yep. And there's so many of those. I mean, so for those listening, watching, I'm in Texas. So that's what I'm most familiar with, are recent sightings here. And then also historically. And that's, sometimes people will ask me, oh, what's the best sighting that you've ever covered? And to me, it's more about the patterns. So it's not so much about that one alien abduction encounter that was reported to me that was really intriguing, or that one report of a flying saucer where they had a picture. It's more the patterns. So the triangular UFOs, which are just seen nonstop these days, it seems like in Texas, almost to the point where UFO researchers even almost tune it out. It's so ubiquitous. So that stands out to me. And that's because so many people are seeing them from all walks of life, posting it everywhere online, not just to me, photos, videos. Yes, the multiple witnesses, and that the witnesses are of such a variety, and are pilots sometimes, and members of the military, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. When you're talking about patterns and statistics, I think of Cheryl Acosta and Linda Miller Acosta of the UFO sightings desk reference. And Cheryl Acosta was saying recently that, she actually was talking about this after they had done their data collection. Her suspicion is that there's a 6-year pattern of UFO spikes. And so she predicted that we should be entering one of those spikes now. And then her most recent data raking has shown that indeed we're moving into another spike, just as she had predicted. And it's odd. Like, why would these UFOs, why would there be these peaks and valleys? Because no matter what's happening in Texas or New York or the United States or the world, like the phenomena doesn't seem to care about our politics, our wars, our famines, any of that. So what do you think that could be?
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I'd be curious to look at that data in more detail and compare it to some of the things I've seen. And that's also a gap for me. So I have a lot of really great statistical information. I have a great at my fingertips that I've been logging over the years. And so I have a lot of things I'd like to launch with that. I do have a triangle UFO map you can browse. So I'd like to look into that because I have noticed things like that. Summertime, for example, seems to triangle UFOs will peak, and there's some summers that are more are heavier than others. And yeah, it does seem to, and there's these waves, and I know they're called UFO flaps in the community, and that definitely occurs. And that's actually how I can determine if something was really anomalous, like just seen by one person, or really was a legitimate phenomenon, you know, for maybe it's a sighting that went on for many days in a row or over weeks. So yeah, that does happen.
Yeah. What do you think needs to change in the ufology community at large, or specifically in investigative measures?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really love the community, and even, you know, even those who maybe don't agree with me or send me not so kind messages sometimes. And I think what the community has done to date has been really amazing. And yeah, sure, there's, you know, single specific people who are in the limelight a lot and giving credit for disclosure and all that, but this has been a complete group effort from day one. And the only reason Tom DeLonge could go out there and talk about this is because other people were talking about it, right? And people were comfortable, right? So I think continuing to talk about it and doing what we've been doing, well, I'd say there's room for improvement is let's just, you know, live by our own example. So or not live by our own example, but let's keep the conversation going. So if at this point we still only want to talk to other UFO believers who believe the same thing as us and have followed the same set of research, then we're really limiting and stopping disclosure. Now, you know, we need to talk to as many people as we can and understand that a person, you know, a friend or a neighbor who's never researched UFOs before, maybe they've seen a UFO. They may be a better source about this than you. Or maybe they have a theory about this that's different than something you ever thought about. And maybe it's more correct than yours. And so this is a time for us all to feel comfortable talking about it and not try to necessarily prove yourself or try to prove a specific opinion, but let's just talk about this comfortably and be able to share ideas and allow others, now that this is in the news and things like that, the president's mentioning it, maybe more people will come and share their sightings. So we want to be welcoming of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. It's kind of like storytelling. If you're a writer, you're drawing on a whole history of books that you've read. So, you know, if some part of your story is similar to someone else's story in the past, it doesn't make you a plagiarist, you know. And in the UFO community, I feel like you have someone out in California and someone out in New Hampshire, they can come up with the same idea at the same time, you know. And that's the whole idea of now that it is fantastic that we have an online collective where people can just share their thoughts in real time and theorize on ideas and throw their, you know, hypotheses out there for people to look at. And so, yeah, the idea of like taking credit for one particular proposal, you know, is it's silly. Yeah, there's a little bit of like controversy around Tom DeLonge. I personally, like, I don't mind so much that he's doing his thing. I think that the media needs to be a little bit responsible themselves, because he's getting the attention because he's high profile and has these high profile connections, right? And so the media is just going after them, and they're not doing their background research first. If they would do their you know, deep research, they would realize, oh, a lot of these ideas or these videos even, you know, existed before. It's a failing, I think, on the part of media, and that's why it's great that people like yourselves who pursue journalism decide that this is the route they want to go, because we need that, you know?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the goal. And, early on, I would say the community was, or the readers really were those who had been researching this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, a number of, if you haven't researched this for a while, but then you see something, you become a witness, and we end up meeting and getting to know each other, right? But I will say, as disclosure is approaching, which is maybe a controversial statement, but as this is becoming more of a newsworthy topic, the audience is getting much bigger and broader, and I think it's fun. I have some on our Weird UFO show on YouTube. We have some interviews coming out that I think will be really fun. I got one with a comedian, so let's look at this from a different angle, not necessarily somebody's written a bunch of alien books, right?
Yeah. Was that the Dave Foley?
So that's actually another example. So this is a new interview that will be posted soon with a comedian named Jessa Reed. It was actually filmed before the quarantine, and it's a great conversation. Cool. Just a really different angle. But Dave Foley is who you guys may know from Kids in the Hall and all kinds of stuff. So we're a fan of A Bug's Life here at home. He voices the main bug character in that, and he's been in a ton of stuff. Yeah. And so he is interested in this, and I met him at Area 51 not too long ago, and he's awesome. So we've got an interview with him, as well as director Jeremy Corbell and Ryan Sprague. So that was a really fun panel. And again, just along the lines of, let's take this conversation to everybody. Yes. Instead of just talking to each other. Yeah.
No, you're right. There's a lot of talking to each other, which is awesome. But yeah, it does kind of feel sometimes that it's a feedback loop, right. And you're not getting that broader audience. How do you feel about Ancient Aliens on history?
I think it's a blast. I mean, it's a fun TV show. It's so provocative. The ideas need to exist. They need to be out there. Yep. If it wasn't for Ancient Aliens, who knows what mainstream archaeology or history would look like. Think about if people weren't even considering those ideas. Yeah. It's definitely still a TV show. People say things and, make mistakes, or, might over sensationalize, but they're pretty careful in that show. These are ideas. These are theories. So yeah, I mean, I love it. I'm a fan.
Yeah, me too. I think it's been a wonder for ufology, actually. And then even though because you've brought just a huge crop of people in just from this one show. And now granted, so maybe a lot of those people have more spectacular ideas that may not be very well grounded. But at least you brought their attention, and then they're sharing this with other people. And then you have younger people who will pursue archaeology and science. And they're, because of their exposure to programs like this, they'll have that much more of an open mind. So even as they do their own research and they're like, oh, maybe that's a little bit too far off the mark, they're still curious now about something that they would not have been before. I remember there's a pseudo friend of mine, more like a work acquaintance, years ago, and he was studying archaeology, and he came across Graham Hancock's work, and it completely changed the trajectory of his thinking.
Yeah.
I see the same thing here with this.
Right. And that's so important. And that is, let's not underestimate the idea, the power of the idea, just the idea that you could look at a cave painting or a hieroglyph or a set of stones, and that you're allowed to have your own theories about why people did that.
Sure.
That you don't have to accept the mainstream idea about why people did that. You can understand what that is, and you can take that into consideration. But so far, time travel is at least not public. that technology. Yeah. So again, it's like, well, probably anything really, the deeper you get, but there really is nobody who can go back in time and relive those situations and understand exactly what it was like to live during that time, or what it was like to see different things in the sky. Yeah. So I think that's, extremely important. And it does segue to the UFO phenomenon, because disclosure, whether you think it's coming or not, it's a talking point, right? There's two aspects about it. So there's the modern day UFO phenomenon, and then there's the history of the UFO phenomenon.
Right.
So both need to be understood. If we, become to realize one aspect of it, it then leads to the next uncovering. So if we accept that UFOs are here today, well, how long have they been here? If we find out, if we all agree that some UFOs were around back in the day, some other species beyond humans, then okay, well, where did they go?
Yeah.
So
it feeds back, right? Yeah. So something that you uncover in the modern phenomena in real time might be a clue or a puzzle piece for something in the past, and vice versa.
Exactly. It's like anything, right? If I was to find out why are there cars, to go find out the history of cars.
Yeah.
So there's no other way. You're gonna either start, being ancient aliens or ancient ufology, and then, okay, what does that mean for today? Or you'll start today, and what does that mean for the past?
Right. Well, it's like if you were to see a hieroglyphic of, I don't know, a chariot, let's say. But you are a traveling nomad thousands of years ago, and you saw this image, you would have no idea what it is. Now, it might, it's more of a simplistic engineering, so it might spark some ideas in your mind, but you would look at that and go, what is that? But if you came from a culture that had the wheel, then you'd be able to put it together and go, oh, okay, I see what that is. So that makes sense. Yeah. I'm still iffy about the whole time travel thing, though, because,
well, it's definitely, the technology exists. It hasn't been publicly disclosed to us,
but it worries me, because I feel like, okay, because my understanding of the concept of time is that it's not linear, right? So if it's not linear, and we can also time travel,
what does that mean?
What does that mean? Like, because are we disrupting if we're time traveling, or if every time we time travel, everything is reset and we just don't even know it? Like you and I are talking, right? And then like a minute from now, whatever's happening a minute from now could have been affected by a time traveler, but we wouldn't even be aware of it.
Yep.
Our past history could change. Maybe there was a history where Lincoln was still alive.
Mandela effect, right? I guess that's the idea behind the Mandela effect is, which what's kind of cool about the Mandela effect over time is there really haven't been new ones. So as a skeptic, you could say, at least I look for new ones and I can't find. And so as a skeptic, you say, well, it's just trending. We figured out everything we mismemoried, and we figured it all out. Or you could say, maybe there was some kind of shift that happened.
Yeah.
And it was this tangible moment in time. Because the Mandela effect, there's some that you could debunk very easily, just like UFO sightings.
Yep.
But there's others that are hard to. And I know we're not talking aliens or UFOs, but time travel is relevant for so many reasons. Time, space, all of that obviously has to be understood in order to create crazy advanced spacecraft that's going across the galaxy. So, right. So that's something, obviously we're still learning about time. So in a more advanced alien in a spaceship may be manipulating it to some degree, or manipulating space and time.
Yeah.
Right. To get to where you're going. So it's relevant in that, considering that. But it's also relevant. People wonder, okay, if us humans were eventually to advance and create spacecraft in the future, would we be able to come back and visit today? Is that something we wouldn't want to do? Is that what some of those UFOs are? So that's been a fun, I know people have had fun discussing that.
Yeah. Well, I remember Art Bell used to, from Coast to Coast AM, for anyone who, I don't know, maybe doesn't know Art Bell. I'm sure there are people who don't. But he used to talk about that. He would imagine that perhaps the Greys are just human beings, 1,000 years from now. We've just all, intermingled, went out to space, mutated a little bit, came back, and that's what we look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And to go back to the Mandela effect a little bit, just because we're talking about future, the more fascinating Mandela effects, like the Berenstain Bears one, which if people hadn't followed along at the time, people recall different spellings of that. I'm not even sure if I'm going to get it right. People remember it EIN, but it's spelled Berenstain.
Yes,
EIN. But it's actually spelled AIN, but everybody remembers EIN. I did some digging, and there is some family history around that family. And Berenstain was sometimes changed to Berenstain to hide there's a Jewish ancestry. I'm not sure, but you know how people would change their names in early migration. So there actually is something to that. So I would ask diggers to look into that because I believe there could have been a family history with EIN.
Well, do you remember? Was it Shazam?
Yes, that was one of them.
That was one of them, right?
Yes, that was one of them. And I remember that one too. I have that.
I thought that was a movie too.
Memory,
and people are saying that it's just a bunch of people mixing up the Kazam,
which happened. It does.
But what if the Shazam actually happened? Kazam didn't happen until it changed. And Kazam was actually what happened.
Because that's the idea. It wasn't. It's not that you're just remembering different things. You would be remembering another timeline. So, like a lot of mismemories, people remember different movie endings. And but then you'll find out that there was that movie ending planned. So they're like, oh, well, maybe you watched that. Well, maybe it's just that in this timeline they went with movie ending A, but you're remembering movie ending B. But something kind of fun and spooky, and I'm sorry to get too much off the UFO path, but that's relevant, is The Simpsons. Yeah. So The Simpsons is known even by those who are normal to be predictive. And the most fascinating Mandela effect situations have all been directly referenced in The Simpsons. So there's a Berenstain Bears parody book. There's a book of Berenstain Bears, and it's a clear parody, so it's like they have a Berenstain Bears book in a Simpsons episode with the different title that you wouldn't expect. The Henry VIII with the turkey leg, that's something that people remember. There's a Homer Simpson. They reenact. There's a portrait of Henry VIII with the turkey leg that everybody remembers. It doesn't exist, though. He's holding something else, I think. But in The Simpsons, they have that painting of Henry VIII with the turkey leg. The different Mona Lisa, people remember different Mona Lisa paintings. In The Simpsons, they have a whole episode where they have Lisa Simpson do different Mona Lisa paintings.
Yes.
So all the most fun Mandela effects are directly referenced in The Simpsons, which I just find... It's like they're almost messing with us and trying to inflame that. And I find that so weird.
No, I love it. And The Simpsons also, has been predictive as well.
Right. And so were they predicting the Mandela effect conversation and then so that they could just somehow, and so that they could include all these references. But it's total, and there's more examples. I think people have done YouTube videos on it because it's so wild.
Maybe one of the writers in Simpsons is from the future.
Or he started it, right? Or the Simpsons writers are like, let's start the Mandela effect.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, that's the other big conversation is, are UFOs nuts and bolts, or is there a paranormal overlap? Are they one and the same? Is this really a paranormal phenomena or interdimensional rather than just extraterrestrials?
Yeah. I think you can tell by the way this conversation has been diverging. I definitely deeply consider all the angles. And so nuts and bolts, there's definitely physical craft that have been caught on video and photo and seen by witnesses, perhaps studied at facilities like the S1 near Area 51 and reverse engineered. So I believe that there were physical sightings of humanoid-like creatures, at least back in the day, maybe around Roswell era, but even earlier, based on all the different testimony. However, in recent years, almost all alien encounters don't seem to have that physical trace of evidence. Not saying that they're any less real for those that encounter these, whatever they are, but there's not that physical evidence. It's something recalled in a dreamlike state or in hypnosis, or and it's often experienced in a dreamlike state.
Yeah.
So, which has me wondering, is there something, beyond the physical going on here? Could we be visited remotely, interdimensionally, across time? There's something going on.
Right. It's funny. The same evolution happened with Bigfoot too.
Yes.
I think the majority of people now think Bigfoot is crossing this liminal threshold and entering our reality. But it's also physical at the same time. So it leaves physical traces. It can break twigs. It can build nests. It can make sounds, interact. But then it can just cross back over. I love, because that explains how enigmatic it is and how it can disappear so fast. My wife and I, we were at James Gilliland's ranch years ago, and we were camping in his field. It was a one-night stay over as we were traveling through the Pacific Northwest. And in the middle of the night, my wife wakes me up, and it's like, there's something outside. And I woke up. Do you ever wake up and you have to go to the bathroom really bad? That was the state I was in. Like, I was like, oh my God. Like, as soon as I woke up, I was like, oh my God, I gotta go to the bathroom. But then I was like, oh my God, there's something walking. There's like and it's a grass field. We knew someone nearby had a dog, but the dog was like a tiny little Jack Russell kind of dog, which be like, little feet running. So I was like, okay, this is not a deer, it's not a dog. Like, what is this sound? It was right outside the tent. But I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I was like, I can't stay in here.
Oh my gosh.
I just unzipped, went outside, and I was gone. Whatever it was. And this is a big open field. So if it was a deer, if it was a dog, whatever, or Bigfoot, if it was running away, I would have heard it or seen it. And then there was just nothing there. Just whatever this thing was disappeared. Now, I don't know if it's actually Bigfoot, but it had a bipedal pace, or the way it walked, gait to it. So,
do you have any cats by chance?
Yeah, we have a cat. Yeah,
we have a cat. I've had cats growing up, but this recent cat is I'm like, this is where people get the whole idea of cats being magical and interdimensional, because it's like he just disappears sometimes. And I know he's just like a cat and he's fast and sneaky. But it really makes me wonder sometimes. I'm like, did he just literally disappear on me and then go into another realm and come back?
Yeah.
I definitely know some cryptozoologists who are not a fan of the Bigfoot is some magical ghost-like figure, and they tend to think that he really is a relic. It's a and there's a lot of there is physical evidence, the footprints and stuff like that. However, when we're talking about interdimensional beings that could be visiting, that's just a hard box to keep very small and to keep closed and to just not consider when you do have encounters like you had. And, maybe we're talking about multiple things and it's all just colliding together. for sure. But look, Chewie in Star Wars was a big, hairy, communicated just fine. Was highly intelligent, and why wouldn't Chewie maybe occasionally come to Earth for something? And oh shoot!
Well, I'm sure. Okay, so you have an ET poster behind you, which I think is awesome because that's my favorite movie of all time.
Yes.
So you've heard the ET crossover theory, right?
Well, I know that E.T. is in Star Wars.
Yes, yeah, the
I
species.
don't remember which one.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's in the Senate.
So exactly. Yep.
And there's this idea that maybe because in E.T., Elliot's playing with Star Wars characters, that maybe those characters were actually inspired by, and it's like this whole anyway. It's a conundrum, but I just love that idea. So is E.T. one of your top favorite movies?
It's my very favorite.
Me too.
So I'm a big movie buff, so a lot of movies, I like Star Wars and stuff, but E.T., it's so great from a filmmaking perspective. Yeah. Steven Spielberg acting and everything, and just the story is timeless. Mm-hmm. Of course, there is a lot of fun lore around it. Apparently Steven Spielberg, I think, or somebody quoted Steven Spielberg, there's some quote somewhere that this was based on a true story. I think when it was introduced to a White House screening. So somebody can go do the digging on that one. I think there's a lot of speculation around it anyways over the years, so it's kind of hard to get to the bottom of, but there's definitely that. And Spielberg's an interesting director. There's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which has similar lore around it, and Spielberg's pretty focused on the space and alien topic. So
absolutely, but what makes Spielberg so great though is his humanism, and his best films all felt like little mini mythologies. I saw Chase Klutsky was it wasn't Chase. I don't know. Somebody was no, it wasn't her. But someone was tweeting something online, speculating the theories about what Jaws meant, and it was all political. And I was like, no, that's not Steven Spielberg. It's about there's a myth arc to that, and particularly in E.T. My understanding is it was based on his childhood. I think he had a single mom, or his dad. I don't know what the dynamic was there, but a lot of that was drawn from his home life, and that was like the heart of the film.
Mm-hmm. Well, my favorite scenes, and this might be the film buff in me, but my favorite scenes are the quieter scenes when the family's just interacting, like when he's doing dishes and the steam's coming up, and that's like a very iconic scene, and there's nothing happening in that. It's just a human moment. And so I totally agree, and I'm a fan of all the Spielberg movies for that reason. Always,
The best gift I've ever been given my entire life was from my wife, and she surprised me and took me to the Lincoln Center to watch an orchestrated E.T. So E.T. was up on the screen, and a live Pops orchestra was playing.
That's cool.
It was I was tearing, and like we were the only ones. Like everybody was like crying because the music. Just threw you in a way that
John Williams. I love music, and I mean everybody loves music. Most people love music. Most humans love music, but John Williams, yes. I mean Star Wars, E.T., a lot of alien space movies that are embedded in us. We have those scores with us too, so it's the soundtrack to a lot of what's the future.
Yep. All right, so speaking of future, what do you want to see change in the future of ufology?
So we were kind of touching on this before, and like I was saying, I really think we just need to keep chugging along and doing what we've been doing, talking about it with our friends and family, and in places like this, but I think it's just really important that we don't shut down conversations. We try not to be so sensitive. not to be so weary of an idea we don't agree with, or if there's somebody tweeting at you with an idea and you think it's crap because they don't have the right sources, what's a productive way you can continue the conversation with them? Don't make fun of them, don't put them down, because then you miss out on that chance to educate them. And similarly, listen. Don't assume that you're always right. What other people have to say. I think that's so important right now, is to listen. Listen.
Yeah, I think listening, absolutely. And that crosses over from ufology to politics. Like, if you're beating people over the head with your idea, that doesn't reach them. There's no way you're gonna find that something inside of them that you can connect with, and maybe get them to think a little bit differently or see things from your side. I think that's what the brilliance of Spielberg is, and George Lucas too. Because even in George Lucas, there's some politics there, right? Even in the original trilogy, but he's not hitting you over the head with it. He's appealing to your heart first, and then I think it's movies like that and Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry, he was very progressive in the 60s, right? But for TV, and he was trying to reach people's heart through science fiction. And I think it was brilliant,
Yeah, totally. The human element of it. I mean, Star Wars is a great example. We are now going into space. A lot of the ships and stuff that we see in Star Wars aren't far off from what we're creating right now. But you take this old Western style group of human characters and you put them in that scene, and it's a lot more comforting and relatable, and we can see what we have to offer the universe. So it's not necessarily, us dumb human beings, let's look to the smart aliens. But what's awesome about being human?
Are you a hardcore Star Wars fan?
So I am. And then I also married, like, he has the tattoo, and then we had a child who just had it in his DNA, essentially. So we're a Star Wars house. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I have to be honest. Yes, the environment has boosted that.
Have you guys finished season?
I'd be watching Frozen a little bit more, if it wasn't for that. But
right. I just watched Frozen 2. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
It's great. Yeah, it's good.
Did you finish season 7 of Clone Wars?
Okay, so Clone Wars, I'm not that. Now, my husband and son probably have.
Okay, so
I haven't. I haven't dug too much. I mean, we did Mandalorian, obviously, and all the different movies and everything. But no, I don't know. That's like next level, right?
Like, next level fandom, because I tried watching from the beginning of Clone Wars, and I just couldn't get into it. It was just and I don't mean this offensively. It's just it's designed very much towards kids. Now, the storytelling and the character arc, there are mature themes in there, and it's really well done. But I just couldn't get into it. But then people were like, "You have to see the last 4 episodes of season 7." So I just watched the last 4 episodes of season 7. For me, it was like some of the best Star Wars.
Oh, that's good to know.
I might say better than the sequels. In a weird way. You can't really quantitate. You can't really equate those two things. Or compare them, because it's very different. But the feeling I had, I just from start to finish, I was like, this is really beautifully written and really well done. I don't know. I loved it. So if you get a chance, if you just skip all the rest of the seasons, the last 4, it was really good. Yeah,
that's good to know. Yeah, that's really good to know. Yeah, I mean, I've liked everything, in the Star Wars world, but for different reasons. I mean, they're all so different. So I try to, even appreciate Jar Jar Binks, for what they are.
I never really had a problem with the character of Jar Jar Binks. It was some of the choices made to use him, like in the battle of what's the battle when they're on the field in Phantom Menace? Where he's falling and tripping and the balls are going everywhere. I was like, that's cool that he's a silly, goofy character for kids, but as far as a scene in a battle, it was just too cartoonish,
Distracting.
Yeah, it was distracting, exactly. But like,
Yeah.
I still kind of enjoyed Jar Jar. I never hated Jar Jar.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm kind of a fan of Phantom Menace, which I think is funny because I think Attack of the
like
Clones.
those movies now. Yeah, like now as time has passed, you're kind of over the expectation or whatever it is you thought it was supposed to be, and it really is very kid friendly and fun. Those movies, so we appreciate them more now than when they first came out. So
well, Dave Filoni in an interview was just talking about how he understood Duel of the Fates, the song, but the scene where Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul are fighting, right? He broke it down basically saying that Duel of the Fates is the two fates for Anakin. This is the decisive moment in Anakin's life. Had Qui-Gon Jinn beat Darth Maul and not died, he would have been the father figure that he wanted to be for Anakin. Whereas Obi-Wan, he didn't want anything to do with Anakin when they first met him. And he was such by the book Jedi that he became more of a brother than a father figure. And so that's where Anakin's, like, his path completely skewed.
Yeah,
and that's why it's called Duel of the Fates. Yeah. Which was just took it to another level for me.
Yeah, Duel of the Fates, that's a good one. We sung that in choir.
Oh my God, that was an intense
song I ever got to sing in choir, like with an orchestra and stuff. It was amazing. That's a good one.
Yeah, I know we went way off topic, but
yeah,
that's all right. But thanks for hanging out.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Yeah. So for everyone watching, please go to Weird UFO. That's the channel. No, UFO Jane.
So confusing. I know. The weirdufoshow.com. You can essentially find everything from there. If you type in youtube.com/Texas UFO sightings, you'll get to, the interviews and stuff, and you can search UFO Jane. But you'll find me.
Okay. Cool.
I've been annoying enough out there, so.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Coffee and UFOs. For more information, please follow me on Twitter at paranormal_now. And I wish you all the best in health and wellness. And until next time, live in the mystery.